Hello, I am Olu Adetomiwa, and I'm happy to be with you on this episode. I just want to share my heart with you about meaning for living. There is nothing like finding the meaning for your life. I'd heard the definition for almost everything growing up as a young boy. I was told the definition for biology, for all the subjects that I was taught as a little secondary school boy. But nobody could give me the definition for life. Think about that. For an example, I was told biology is the study of life. But I needed to know the life that I had to study. But as I got to know the Lord, I gave my heart to the Lord, received His eternal life, I began to read my Bible. And I found an interesting story. It's the story of an occasion where Jesus was teaching, and in His audience, apparently, there was a disgruntled fellow, a fellow who wasn't happy with maybe his elder brother. From the story, sounds very much like their dad had died, and maybe the elder brother wasn't willing to be fair in the sharing of their inheritance. And so Jesus was teaching powerfully. And this young man, I can imagine, raised his hand. Now that's my imagination. You certainly won't find it like that in the Bible. But this young man raised his hand. So I imagine that Jesus probably didn't give him attention initially. But when somebody is desperate, especially if you are talking about a fellow who by character trait can be mischievous or can be naughty, you raise one hand like that and then you are not getting attention, then you want to raise the other one, and probably he still wasn't getting attention, so maybe he stood up, but he must have done something to have created a pause, a window of opportunity for him to say his mind. Now, enough of polishing the story. Jesus eventually gave this guy audience, and then the guy says, "Oh, Jesus, I need you to talk to my brother because he's not willing to divide the inheritance, and all that." And Jesus' response. So let me read Jesus' response to you from Luke and chapter 12. Luke chapter 12, and I'm reading from verse 14, beginning. "And he said unto him, Man, who made me a judge or a divider over you?" Verse 15, "And he said unto them, Take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life consisteth not in the abundance of the things which he possesses." Now you see, I find Jesus' response quite interesting. And that began to open up to me what for me, and I am hopeful you'll agree with me, is a definition for life. He said, a man's life. First he says, beware of covetousness. Then next he says, a man's life. Now, the beware of covetousness. Why? Because a man's life does not consist of the abundance of the things which he possesses. In other words, beware of covetousness, because a man's life is not defined by his acquisitions. A woman's life is not defined by her acquisition. So there is the principle of elimination. One way to know what a thing is by first eliminating what it is not. So we see clearly here that life is not defined by acquisition. If we flip that to the opposite side, then it means life is defined by contribution. So life, therefore, is the privilege to contribute, the privilege to add value, the privilege to give. That makes me agree totally with the saying that living is giving and giving is living. Every single one of us alive has got something they are alive to give, or they are alive to contribute. Now, please understand, when we talk about giving, it's not in the giving of money and all that. Giving is a lifestyle. It is not in substance as much as it is a lifestyle. Okay, so you can define life, therefore, as the privilege, the opportunity that you have to give. If you are not giving, if you are not adding value, then it means the person is not living. So remember, I said I want to talk to you about meaning for living. Now, what is meaning? Please permit me to not necessarily go to all the dictionary technicalities. I just want to make it as practical and as simple as possible. Meaning, whenever you are remembered, let's say you aren't there and then your name was mentioned, whatever came to people's mind when your name was mentioned is the meaning that you have. I mean, that's what you mean to them. Some fellows, the minute their name is mentioned, wickedness just comes. In other words, they represent wickedness. That's the taste they leave behind in people's mouths. They are synonymous with wickedness. So, question, what are you synonymous with? What is it that people think of whenever anything that represents you shows up, or whenever you yourself show up, or when they have expectation of your arrival, when they have expectation of you coming? What is it that people think of? That's your significance. That's the meaning for your life. Now, if it could be positive and it could be negative, but you see, you determine which it is, whether positive or negative. There are people whose life, let me not go too far. In like a decade or two ago, there are names you would mention, and then the next thing that just comes to the mind is maybe some criminal acts or criminal activity or lifestyle. That's what comes to mind. Now, some of those fellows are not here. They are dead. So they don't have a second chance to rewrite the meaning for their lives. They are gone. But you and I are here, thankfully, and we can appraise the meaning for our lives. And that is what I'm going to be addressing in the next episode after this. We want to really go back to the very making of man. You know, only one man was made. The rest of us were reproduced. So let's go back to the very making of that man, the very foundation of humanity. And then from there, we would like to trace it and bring it to your doorstep. And I am very hopeful that in the process, you would have found meaning for your life. And not only that, another word people use a lot when they say meaning is the word purpose. So we want to find purpose for living, if you like, and we want to simplify it. There are people who have heard teachings, they've read books, a lot of study and research, but the truth of the matter is they probably have found it too academical or too complex for them to comprehend. And we just want to gist. I just want to gist with you. And in the process of gisting, let's just see how we find simplification to finding meaning and finding purpose. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you for your time.